February 1979. Iran had just witnessed one of the most dramatic political earthquakes of the 20th century. For decades, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi had ruled the country with near absolute power, backed by a powerful military, a feared secret police, and billions in oil wealth. Then in a matter of weeks, it all collapsed. Millions of Iranians poured into the streets. The Shah boarded a plane and never returned. And Ayatollah Khomeini, a 76-year-old cleric who had spent years in exile, flew back to Tehran to a reception that stunned the world. An estimated 5 million people lined the streets to welcome him. But behind the celebration, something far darker was already being set into motion. The revolution had won. Now it needed to make sure it could never be reversed, and to do that, it would have to destroy everyone who had once held power. Within days of taking control, the revolutionary leadership faced a problem that every new government fears most. What do you do with the people from the old system? Thousands of military officers, government ministers, intelligence agents, and senior administrators were still inside the country. Many of them had spent their entire careers serving the Shah. Some had overseen crackdowns on protesters. Others had run the surveillance networks that tracked and imprisoned political dissidents for years. The revolutionary leadership believed that leaving these individuals free or even alive was simply too dangerous. History had shown them what could happen. Revolutions had been reversed before. Loyalist militaries had staged coups. Pseudo-exiled governments had returned with foreign support. Khomeini's inner circle was determined that none of that would happen in Iran. The solution they created was called the Islamic Revolutionary Courts. These were not courts in any traditional sense of the word. There were no independent judges, no right to legal representation, no standard of evidence, no formal appeals process. They were, in every practical sense, instruments of elimination designed to process large numbers of people quickly and produce one of two outcomes: imprisonment or death. The man placed in charge of running many of these proceedings would become one of the most feared figures in post-revolutionary Iran. His name was Sadeq Khalkhali. Khalkhali was a cleric who had been loyal to Khomeini for years before the revolution ever succeeded. When the Shah fell, Khalkhali was given enormous judicial power almost overnight. He embraced it fully. Those who appeared before him in the courtroom quickly understood that these were not proceedings designed to determine innocence or guilt. They were designed to confirm what the revolutionary leadership had already decided. Trials sometimes lasted less than 20 minutes. Defendants were brought in without warning. Charges were read aloud. The accused had almost no opportunity to speak in their own defense. And then the verdict was delivered: death. Khalkhali moved through these proceedings with a speed that shocked even some members of the revolutionary government. Within weeks, he had ordered the execution of dozens of individuals. Within months, the number had climbed far higher. His reputation spread rapidly throughout Iran. In courtrooms, in prisons, in military barracks, people whispered his name: the hanging judge. The night of February 15, 1979, less than 2 weeks after the revolution's final victory, marked the moment when the Purge moved from policy into action. 4 senior officers were taken from their prison cells at Evin Prison, a facility that had once held dissidents and political prisoners under the Shah, and had now been repurposed to hold the Shah's own people. They were brought before a firing squad in the prison courtyard. The first man executed that night was Nematollah Nasiri, the long-serving head of SAVAK, Iran's feared intelligence agency. Under his leadership, SAVAK had monitored opposition groups, arrested activists, and maintained the surveillance infrastructure that protected the monarchy for years. In the eyes of the revolution, he represented everything that needed to be destroyed. The second was Reza Naji, a military governor who had commanded security operations during the massive street protests of 1978, the uprising that ultimately brought the Shah down. He was accused of directing violence against demonstrators. The third was Mehdi Rahimi, the commander of police forces in Tehran during the final weeks of the monarchy. His role in coordinating the security response during those chaotic final days made him a prime target. The fourth was Manouchehr Khosrodad, an Air Force general who had commanded helicopter units and was considered a significant figure within the military's upper ranks. All 4 were dead before sunrise. By the time Tehran's newspapers reached the streets the following morning, the revolution had announced its message clearly. No position was too high, no service record was too long, no past was safe. As February gave way to March, the pace of the purge accelerated. Arrests were happening across the country. Prisons in Tehran filled rapidly with former ministers, generals, intelligence officials, and senior administrators. Two facilities became the primary stages for what was unfolding. Evin Prison, located in the northern hills of Tehran, had been built by the monarchy to hold political prisoners. Now it held the monarchy's own servants. Qasr Prison, located in the heart of the capital, became one of the most active execution sites during the Purge. Its courtyards, once quiet and unremarkable, were transformed into spaces where firing squads operated day after day. The trials inside these prisons followed a predictable and terrifying rhythm. A prisoner would be brought into a room, charges would be read, usually involving corruption, collaboration with the security forces, or involvement in suppressing protests. The accused would have almost no time to respond. The judge would deliver a verdict, and then the guards would escort the condemned person from the courtroom directly into the prison yard. The firing squad would be waiting. In many cases, the entire process from the opening of the trial to the moment of execution took less than a single hour. By the end of February 1979, the number of people executed had already reached into the dozens. Among all the figures who would fall during the Purge, none carried more symbolic weight than Amir Abbas Hoveyda. Hoveyda had served as Prime Minister of Iran from 1965 to 1977, 12 consecutive years in office, making him the longest-serving Prime Minister in the country's modern history. He was not a shadowy figure. He was not a general who had operated in secret. He was one of the most publicly visible politicians in Iran. When the revolution succeeded, Hoveyda made a decision that would cost him his life. He stayed. He did not flee the country. He did not go into hiding. He remained in Iran, apparently believing that his years of public service and his profile might protect him, or that a fair legal process would ultimately clear his name. He was wrong on both counts. He was arrested and held in custody for months while revolutionary officials debated how to handle such a prominent prisoner. Finally, in April 1979, he was brought before the Revolutionary Court. The courtroom was packed with guards and officials. The atmosphere was electric with tension because everyone present understood this was not just another trial. This was a statement. And Hoveyda was accused of helping maintain the political system of the monarchy of being, in the eyes of the revolution, a fundamental part of the machine that had suppressed the Iranian people. The verdict came quickly: guilty, death. Within hours of the verdict, the sentence was carried out. The execution of a former prime minister sent a shockwave through Iran and across the international community. It confirmed something that many had suspected, but few wanted to believe. The revolutionary purge had no ceiling. No institution was more associated with the Shah's power and more despised by the revolution than SAVAK. Created in 1957 with assistance from the CIA and Mossad, SAVAK had evolved over 2 decades into one of the most sophisticated domestic intelligence organizations in the Middle East. It maintained a vast network of informants. It monitored universities, labor unions, mosques, and political groups. It ran interrogation centers. It tracked Iranians living abroad. For ordinary citizens who had experienced its reach, SAVAK represented everything that had been wrong with the monarchy. The revolutionary leadership was determined to eliminate not just the organization, but every significant person who had ever led it. One of the most important targets was Hassan Pakrovan, who had served as SAVAK's director between 1961 and 1965. Pakrovan was an educated, sophisticated military officer who had played a central role in shaping SAVAK during its formative years. His background was almost unusually cosmopolitan for the Revolutionary Court's typical target. He was fluent in multiple languages, well-traveled, and had connections across the Iranian establishment. None of it mattered. He was arrested, brought before the Revolutionary Court, charged with building and maintaining the intelligence infrastructure that had protected the Shah, and sentenced to death. In April 1979, the sentence was carried out. With Pakrovan gone, another foundational pillar of the monarchy's security system had been permanently removed. The purge was not conducted in secret. This was a deliberate choice. Revolutionary media announced executions publicly. Newspapers published the names of those who had been put to death. Photographs taken inside prison courtyards showing the aftermath of firing squads circulated in print publications across the country. The message being sent was not only to former officials, it was to everyone still serving in the military, to every officer who might be considering resistance, to every commander who might be thinking about organizing a response. The revolutionary leadership understood a basic principle of power, that visible punishment shapes behavior far more powerfully than hidden punishment. Officers throughout Iran's armed forces heard about the executions of Nasiri, Rahimi, Naji, and Khosroddad. They saw the photographs, they read the reports, and then, one by one, they made their calculations. The result was one of the most significant political outcomes of the entire period. The Iranian military, an institution with hundreds of thousands of personnel and enormous firepower, largely chose compliance over resistance. Senior commanders pledged loyalty to the new government. Others simply fell silent and followed orders. The revolutionary purge had accomplished something remarkable. It had neutralized the single greatest threat to the new government's survival without triggering a military coup. By the end of 1979, the revolutionary purge had permanently and irreversibly transformed Iran. The old political elite, the generals, the ministers, the intelligence chiefs, the senior administrators had been either executed, imprisoned, or forced into permanent exile. And the Islamic Republic of Iran had been formally established. Khomeini had taken the position of supreme leader, and the institutions of the old order had been dismantled and replaced. But the purge left something else behind, something harder to measure than the number of executions or the names of the condemned. It left behind a country that had witnessed, in a single year, how completely and how quickly an entire political order could be erased. The speed of the trials, the public nature of the killings, the fall of figures who had once seemed untouchable. These events did not just reshape Iran's political structures, they reshaped the psychological landscape of a nation. And the reverberations of what happened in those prison courtyards in early 1979 are still being felt today.